Alvin and the Chipmunks was just a goofy Saturday morning cartoon? I spent 3 weeks digging through the actual production history. And this show was hiding things. Corporate conspiracies, exploitation films, audio manipulation that modern producers still can't fully replicate. What I found is genuinely insane. In this video, I'm breaking down 15 bizarre facts about the 1980s Alvin and the Chipmunks. And I mean bizarre, not surface trivia. I'm talking about the technical secrets nobody explains, the dark Hollywood connections, and the corporate drama that got quietly buried. 99% of people who grew up with this show have zero idea about any of this. But by the end of this video, you're going to look at that theme song completely differently. And one more thing before we start, that chipmunk voice technique they used. It's basically the grandfather of modern hyperpop. I'll explain that later. But first, let's start with the technical secret that made the entire franchise possible. Because without this one trick, the Chipmunks literally don't exist. Fact number 1, the voice technique. Those high-pitched chipmunk voices you grew up with, they weren't created the way you think. Most people assume it's just sped up audio or a digital pitch shifter. Nope. Here's what actually happened. Ross Bagdasarian Jr. and his wife Janice Carmen would go into the studio and perform every single line of dialogue extremely slowly. Think talking in slow motion, but while still nailing the emotional beats, the comedy timing, the character personality, all of it at half speed or slower. Then they'd play the tape back at normal speed. The acceleration pushed the pitch way up, and boom, chipmunk. But the hard part isn't the playback. The hard part is the performance. Delivering a genuine emotional scene while speaking like a broken cassette tape takes insane skill. And this wasn't digital. No auto-tune, no software. Pure analog tape manipulation. A technique originally invented by Ross Sr. back in 1958 that they were still using in the 80s. Fact number 2, the syndication scandal. Now let me tell you why your childhood memories might actually be a lie. In 1988, Bagdasarian Productions struck a syndication deal to get the show into weekday reruns. Sounds great, right? Here's the problem. They sped up the episodes. TV stations back then routinely increased playback speed on syndicated shows to squeeze in more commercial time. Common practice. But think about what that means for a show where the entire identity is built on precise speed and pitch control. The syndicated versions were running faster than the original NBC broadcasts, meaning the voices were even higher pitched than intended. So if you watch the Chipmunks in weekday reruns through the late 80s and early 90s, which most of us did, you were watching a commercially distorted version the creators never intended you to see. Your nostalgia is built on a mistake. Fact number 3, the two-person voice monopoly. Every single main character voice in the 1980s, Chipmunks, was performed by exactly 2 people. Ross Bagdasarian Jr. voiced Alvin, Simon, and Dave, 3 completely distinct characters, one guy. His wife Janice Carmen voiced Theodore, and all 3 Chipettes, Brittany, Jeanette, and Eleanor, plus Miss Miller later on. That's a husband and wife team controlling the vocal identity of 7 core characters in a major network cartoon. That's almost unheard of in the animation industry. Most shows spread the work across multiple actors for practical reasons alone, but Bagdasarian Productions locked it down completely because they owned the IP and wanted absolute control over how every single character sounded. The entire emotional landscape of the show was filtered through exactly 2 people. A complete creative monopoly. Fact number 4, the corporate naming conspiracy. The Chipmunks' names aren't random. They're corporate tributes. Alvin, Simon, and Theodore were deliberately named after 3 executives at Liberty Records: Alvin Bennett, the president, Simon Waronker, the founder, and Theodore Keep, the recording engineer. Ross Bagdasarian Sr. literally named his cartoon characters after the guys who funded his novelty record. It's like if Mickey Mouse was named after Walt Disney's accountant. So every time you watched the show as a kid, you were unknowingly paying tribute to the corporate structure of a 1950s record label. But here's the twist. The Chipettes, Brittany, Jeanette, and Eleanor, have no officially confirmed origin for their names. The creators deliberately kept it vague, and I think that's intentional. By refusing to tie the Chipettes to specific executives, the new generation of creators was sending a message. We're not beholden to the corporate legacy that built this thing. Fact number 5. Janice Carmen's dark past. Janice Carmen, the woman behind Theodore, All Three Chipettes, the co-creator of one of the most wholesome franchises in American TV history, has a very different past. Before any of this, she appeared in two 1970s exploitation films, Switchblade Sisters in 1975 and Slumber Party 57 in 1976. If you're not familiar with exploitation films, low budget, independent, adult-oriented, violent, provocative content, the complete opposite of G-rated Saturday morning cartoons. The same woman who would go on to voice innocent cartoon Chipmunks started her career in gritty B-movies. It's like finding out Mr. Rogers used to ride with a motorcycle gang. The contrast is just wild. Quick timeout. If you're enjoying this, smash that like button and hit subscribe. It really helps the channel. Fact number 6. The animation studio chaos. Here's something that explains a lot about the show's inconsistent visual quality. The Chipmunks burned through 3 different animation studios. Ruby Spears handled seasons 1 through 5. Murakami Wolf Swenson stepped in briefly for 11 episodes in 1988. Then, DIC Enterprises finished out the run through 1990. Studios don't change hands for fun. It means contracts fell apart, money got tight, or creative relationships collapsed. This kind of production volatility is almost always a warning sign. And while Bagdasarian Productions kept iron control over the writing and voice performances, the visual side was constantly in flux. Different studios, different styles, different quality standards. If you ever noticed the show looked noticeably different from season to season, now you know why. It was being passed around like a hot potato. Fact number 7. The Cookie Chomper tragedy. Now, we get into the dark stuff. Cookie Chomper III is the most infamous episode of the entire series. Theodore adopts a stray kitten. Cute setup. Classic kids show premise. The episode ends with the kitten getting hit by a car and dying. Permanently. No dream sequence, no miracle recovery. The cat is dead, and Theodore has to sit with it. In an era when children's programming was specifically designed to avoid permanent consequences, this was a deliberate, calculated risk. The creative team looked at their Saturday morning cartoon and said, let's do an episode about grief. Think about that as a kid. You flip on your favorite show expecting musical numbers and silly Alvin antics. Instead, you get a meditation on death and loss with no easy resolution. That episode hit different, and it was supposed to. Fact number 8. The alien encounter. Okay, after all that darkness, this one goes in a completely different direction. There's an episode where Alvin gets grounded for throwing a party while Dave's away. Stuck at home, forced to clean, dealing with the loneliness of being confined. Normal setup. And then, an alien shows up. An actual extraterrestrial. In a grounding episode. The show just casually drops a science fiction element into a domestic punishment storyline and moves on like it's totally fine. The alien is clearly meant as a metaphor, a symbol of Alvin's isolation and desperate need for connection, which is thematically interesting. But also, they could have just had him make a phone call. Instead, they went with alien visitor. And honestly, respect. Fact number 9. The identity swap hostage crisis. This next episode premise sounds like a children's story. It ends up being surprisingly dark. Alvin runs away to the woods and meets a real, wild chipmunk, one that can't talk. can't sing, just lives in the forest. And Alvin proposes they swap lives. So the wild chipmunk goes home to live with Dave, pretending to be Alvin. Meanwhile, the real Alvin tries to survive in nature. Then Alvin gets captured by a hunter who wants to sell him. The actual Alvin, a main character of a Saturday morning cartoon, is now being held hostage and facing the very real possibility of being commodified or killed. And Dave can't tell the difference between his adopted son and a random forest animal. Simon, Theodore, and the feral chipmunk have to launch a rescue operation. This episode makes a genuinely uncomfortable point. They may live like humans, but outside of Dave's house, they're just small animals. Catchable, sellable, disposable. That's dark for a kid's show. Fact number 10. The con artist Uncle. Early in the series, an episode called Uncle Harry introduces a chipmunk who claims to be the boy's long-lost uncle. He immediately starts manipulating them into earning money for him. Money he's using to pay off a debt to a powerful strongman with what are very clearly mob-adjacent connections. So this children's cartoon just casually introduced identity fraud, financial exploitation, and organized crime into the Seville household. Uncle Harry is using child labor to settle underworld debts. That's the plot. In a kids' show. The lesson the episode teaches is genuinely valuable though. Family is not a protection. Anyone can claim to care about you. It doesn't make it true. Fact number 11. Frank Welker's secret role. Despite the near-total family lockdown on voices, the franchise did occasionally bring in outside talent for very specific jobs. One of those hires was Frank Welker, one of the most legendary voice actors in animation history, with literally thousands of credits to his name. But Welker's role was tightly defined. Special vocal effects. Not character voices, not dialogue, just animalistic sounds and creature noises. In the later direct-to-video films, he provided the vocal effects for werewolf transformations. That's it. That was the lane they gave him. It tells you everything about how Bagdasarian Productions operated. The world's greatest voice actor gets hired, and they still won't let him near the main characters. Creature sounds only. The core voices stay in the family. Fact number 12. The final rebrand. By 1990, going into its 8th and final season, the show did something drastic. It completely reinvented itself. The new title was The Chipmunks Go to the Movies. New theme song, completely new format. Every episode was now a parody of a famous Hollywood film. The standard episodic sitcom structure was gone entirely. Shows don't do this unless something is broken. 7 seasons in, the conventional format had clearly run its course, and the ratings pressure was real. The movie parody angle was a calculated pivot. Lean into pop culture, stay relevant, buy more time. It worked well enough to finish the run, but it also marked the moment where the show stopped being what it originally was. Fact number 13. The controversial movie. The Chipmunk Adventure, the 1987 theatrical film, is widely considered the crown jewel of the entire 1980s era. Fan favorite, genuinely beloved, and it is nearly impossible to find on streaming. Physical copies go for high prices. It's effectively been semi-archived by its own creators. Why? Because the film has content that doesn't hold up well. There are elements critics describe as casually racist by modern standards, and a Chipettes number called Getting Lucky that is, let's say, surprisingly suggestive for a children's film. So the people who own the IP are deliberately limiting access to one of their most commercially beloved pieces of content. They're choosing brand safety over nostalgia revenue. That's a significant decision, and it tells you how carefully Bagdasarian Productions guards what the Chipmunks brand means. Fact number 14. The avant-garde legacy. Let's come back to something I flagged at the start, because the more you think about it, the weirder it gets. The original 1958 Chipmunks records were among the first popular music projects built entirely around extreme vocal distortion. At the time, critics called the sound abrasive and jarring. It got filed under novelty music. Kids stuff, easy to dismiss. But zoom out. Today, genres like hyperpop are defined by exactly those qualities: extreme pitch manipulation, sped-up vocals, deliberately abrasive audio textures pushed past the point of comfort. What Ross Bagdasarian Sr. was doing in 1958 with magnetic tape and a slow talk recording trick is conceptually identical to what experimental producers are doing now with digital software. The Chipmunks aren't just a children's franchise. They're an early prototype for an entire branch of modern music. It just took 60 years for everyone else to catch up. Fact number 15, the family empire. Here's the thread that ties everything together. Bagdasarian Productions is a family business, and that explains everything. The two-person voice monopoly, the strict IP control, the willingness to archive problematic content, the consistent creative vision across 8 seasons and multiple film releases. All of it traces back to the same source. Ross Bagdasarian Jr. and Janice Carmen didn't just work on the Chipmunks. They are the Chipmunks. They own it. They protect it. They decide what it means. That level of centralized creative authority is almost unheard of in major network animation. A space normally crowded with corporate stakeholders, competing executives, and committee-driven decisions. 2 people, 7 core characters, 8 seasons, 1 unified vision. That's not just a production choice, that's a philosophy. So, 15 facts. And I hope what comes through is that this was never just a cartoon. It was a technically innovative audio experiment that accidentally predicted the future of music. It was a tightly controlled family empire operating inside a corporate entertainment machine. It was a show willing to give kids an episode about grief, one about being hunted, one about con artists. Right between the musical numbers. The Chipmunks were weird, deliberately weird, and the 2 people running the whole thing knew exactly what they were doing. That's the part most people never see. Like and subscribe. If this changed how you think about the show, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this kind of deep dive. And if you want more rabbit holes into the stuff hiding underneath your favorite childhood cartoons, subscribe. The next one goes somewhere you won't expect. See you there.